What if Callum Newman is the guy that costs Will Ospreay everything at All in London on August 30th for AEW, for that AEW World Heavyweight Championship title against Jon Moxley? What if Callum Newman is that guy? Welcome back to a highly missed Square Circle podcast, and this is the first ever time that I am going to be mixing the Square Circle podcast with the tape study series, so like a tape study session. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Square Circle podcast and the tape study session by your host, or with your host, Marie Shadows. I am so rusty in doing an intro. If you guys want to know where I've been in the lab doing some more tape study sessions, some tape study videos. Oh my god, I can't talk right now, and we're just gonna keep it rolling. We're just gonna do that. We're gonna keep it rolling. But I am making tape study, I am revamping tape study into like tape study 2.0, which is also gonna be known as the post wrestling school tape study for wrestlers, because I was just thinking about this while I was on, a little bit of a break. But you can see all of my progress and everything that I've done over on my Instagram, marieshadows.scp, where you get the full-blown, don't take that the wrong way, get your mind out of the gutter kind of deal, when you get to see all the behind the scenes of the stuff that I am making and relaxing and creating and collaborating with. But I was just thinking that when professional wrestlers in the world of professional wrestling, after you guys are done with your wrestling school and you graduate, obviously you guys need to go get reps. Obviously you guys need to go get booked. But is anyone really looking at your matches to let you know what's the good, bad, and the ugly with constructive criticism and said with love and handwritten notes and a video dedicated to those handwritten notes, so you understand where Marie Shadows is coming from when I tell you this was good, keep this, and the reason for this and that? You can have all the mentors in the world, especially when they run their own businesses, but they're busy. And sometimes they may not get back to you on time, but that's not a slight at you. They're just busy. It's life. So how can you really know if you're on a good track of being the best package wrestler there is out there if all your mentors are completely busy? That's where I come in, because I have a lot of time on my hands and I really do want to give back to the community, and this is my way of giving back to professional wrestlers and to the industry that I love. Whether or not you agree with that statement, that's on you, not on me, but that's my way of giving back to the community. So for tape study, it is a breakdown of your professional wrestling match and or promo, and I give you the good, bad, the ugly with handwritten notes and a video, and I go over everything for you to improve in the next match. Currently right now I have 2 tape study videos available on my Substack, marieshadows.substack.com, which is Avery Styles versus Marcus Mathers and Yuya Uemura versus Ryohei Oiwa for the G1 36, the G1 Climax 36 finals. I really did not take a breath during that whole entire thing. I just went right through it. But yes, if you guys are looking for mentorship, if you guys are looking for a second pair of eyes, some feedback, the tape study is for you. You can go grab a one-off product, which is a just one-off one-on-one call, and I get to just look at your match and then that's it. Or you can do a monthly membership, a yearly membership, and a lifetime access membership as well. If you want to, head over to buymeacoffee.com/Marie Shadows. Now let's get back to just talking wrestling and just all these thoughts that I have in my head. So I like to just chat with other people in the space, other content creators in the space, and not every single content creator knows the lore of the United Empire, and not every content creator is going to go out of their way to watch New Japan Pro Wrestling. And that's something that I need to accept, but this is why I'm here to basically guide them on any kind of lore, any kind of questions. If I have the knowledge, I'll let them know. If not, I'll do the research and then come back to them at a later date. And so as I say all that, I do know that this past Dynamite, or maybe two Dynamites ago, that the United Empire showed up to be in the corner of Will Ospreay. Now, I'm going to be very, very honest with you guys. And every time that I have some criticism towards the United Empire, my disclaimer is that whatever I say does not affect Henare, because he's my guy. Like, it just doesn't affect him. But everything else does, because we got to talk about it in kayfabe. So, hear me out. I do not like when the United Empire are called upon willy-nilly just to be in the corner of Will Ospreay, as if like that's supposed to be an okay type of deal. It makes me feel as if, like, you know, when you just call your friend for something that you need because you're gonna gain from it, versus like actually being a friend and like calling and talking and checking in. That's how I feel now with the United Empire going over to AEW just to help out Will Ospreay, because Will Ospreay apparently has no friends. No friends in AEW. Like, what? And yes, I understand that he broke away from the Death Riders. Another stupid, you know, group that needs to break up too. And so they treat the United Empire members extreme baby faces, and they treat it as like an attraction. And then when there is some type of storyline going on between the United Empire and what's considered AEW storytelling versus New Japan Pro Wrestling storytelling, there is no clear vision for why there's certain tensions, and no one really talks about it, and it's just like it's swept under the rug, if that makes sense. Right after Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty, or maybe just after Wrestle Kingdom, they had New Year's Dash, and that's when Ospreay came back, and he wanted to be back into United Empire. But in my humble opinion, Will Ospreay was the second domino effect to really almost destroy the United Empire. The first one being Kyle Fletcher, and I cover that whole entire thing. You can go into my back catalog of the Square Circle podcast. And so during New Year's Dash, Callum Newman should have hit Ospreay with the chair, but then Henare was like, nah man, you're not gonna do that. He's our buddy, he's our leader, I guess, or our friend. I know that like buddy and friend would have been in that conversation. I don't know about leader, but Callum Newman should have hit Ospreay in the back that day to be like, you're not gonna be in the United Empire, you abandoned us, go back to AEW. But for some reason, in this modern era of professional wrestling, nobody wants to be the bad guy. Nobody wants to be the heel that they need to be. We need villains. We need heels. We need the despicable heels that we once had before everybody became soft as shit in this world. We need those heels way before, men started to get eviscerated by all the feminists and all this kind of bullshit, and made everybody soft as anything and sensitive as anything. And it's like, you never supported professional wrestling in the first place, so this isn't really your space to come and enter and say that, oh, we shouldn't be that mean, oh my god, you said a bad joke, oh my god, you're this or that. Like, you don't need to be in this space because you never supported this space. This is why modern professional wrestling is at a decline, because when people need to do something that is considered right by their character in a play, that's how I'm going to explain professional wrestling. Professional wrestling is a play. You're playing a character, even though some people are like, this is my real name. I don't care if that's your real name. You're in there between the ropes. You're giving me entertainment. You're a character. So, by the character of Callum Newman, back then when he felt like he was under the shadow of Will Ospreay, and then put all this pressure on him, and then he finally took the reins of the United Empire, he should have hit Will Ospreay, because by his character's logic, that would have been the breaking point, and that would have been like, no, I got it from here, you go stay in AEW because you abandoned us. But like I said, we now live in a modern world where everybody is soft and men are no longer men. And then there was that time that AEW, for some odd reason, John Moxley was like, Will Ospreay, I want you to join the Death Riders. The worst person to ever let you get trained in MMA is John Moxley. If you want some real true experience in getting trained in MMA so that way you don't have any more high flying stuff due to getting surgery and all this kind of stuff that could have made Ospreay like retire, you go and call Bobby Lashley. You go and call the Hurt Syndicate. You go and call those guys because they have the accolades and the accomplishments to back up their MMA, their amateur wrestling style versus John Moxley and the Death Riders. But anyway, Will Ospreay joined the Death Riders, as we all know, and then online, I do know that the tensions were rising because Callum Newman was like, dude, what are you doing? That is where AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling leave money on the table because you need to capitalize on moments like this. There is tension building within the United Empire. Callum Newman has all the right to be upset that Will Ospreay joined the Death Riders, but then also said that he's going to be part of the United Empire and be under Callum Newman's wing, shadow, foot, however you want to put it, to be back in. And then New Japan Pro Wrestling awards Will Ospreay, Hinare, and the Great Khan the NJPW Trios Championship titles. Why do we always have to have some convoluted shit when it comes to United Empire, when it comes to AEW, when it comes to New Japan Pro Wrestling booking? How does that make any sense? And then for people that are casual watchers that don't know what's going on, but they like to hear other people's perspectives and opinions, they're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. I'm as confused as you are. And I'm trying my best to put this into a perspective that makes sense. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work out. But I will tell you that I was going to be like United Kingdom, but I could just be like some UK fanboy is going to tell you it makes sense. But then they don't know how to use vocabulary nowadays. And so after all of that, Will Ospreay ends up leaving the Death Riders, and then he's by himself, and he calls up his United Empire buddies, which is cool that other people get to see who the other United Empire members are. But is it really going to have an impact? It's really not going to have an impact. It really isn't, because the AEW fan base is so ingrained to be like AEW above everything. You know, we have the New Japan partnership and it's the greatest thing, but we don't support the New Japan partnership. We just support AEW. That's a whole nother conversation for me to get into. And then after the match, I do know that the United Empire won their Dynamite match. There was also the sit down interview, the promo that I saw between Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. And for once, I'm like, yo, Will Ospreay needs to win now after that fiery promo. Like, Ospreay needs to win in Wembley because, like, I believed it, which is kind of rare. Will Ospreay has the talents. It's just that sometimes his boyish mentality gets him into fucking trouble. Anyway, I would like to say that after this match, whoever is the winner, and I hope that it is not Kenny Omega retaining, Kenny Omega, please retire. I say that because you have not changed with the times, sir. It is no longer about trying to do an anime villain character where you have too much spray tan bronze on. You did the same thing with Gabriel Kidd. I should say Gabe Kidd. You did the same thing with him for Wrestle Kingdom, Wrestle Dynasty, whichever one of those two that happened that I reviewed it. You did the same thing, the anime character, while you have someone being true as a true person, as a true character, as a true human being, and the way that they talk, the way that they move, and whatnot. It's 2026 where we're trying to look for authenticity and it's trying to break through, even though some people still appreciate people lying and people not being themselves. But in modern wrestling, again, we're still trying to look for something new while also still trying to keep the kayfabe. But in the sense of AEW, everything that AEW does is in the form of, this is real life, this is IRL content. They should just rebrand their shit to IRL in in real life because no one knows how to play a character, while you have someone trying to be a character and then it falls flat because he wants to be the villain and try to pull on the heartstrings. Man, Ospreay pulled on my heartstrings and I'm like, bro, give him the fucking belt. That should tell you that times are changing, and if you're not changing with the times, it's time for you to retire. And so, even as I think about all this, said all this to you, and as I'm chatting with one of my collaborating buddies, he knows who he is when he hears this, that I was telling him the whole lore, and then just brainstorming, I was just like, what if Callum comes in? Because Callum still has this unchecked sort of tension against Ospreay, even though Ospreay is no longer with the Death Riders. That doesn't mean that everything is okay. It just means that like there's still tension there because Ospreay is spending more time in AEW than he is defending those trios titles in New Japan Pro Wrestling against New Japan Pro wrestlers. You start a story where you're like, I had to come back to United Empire. I'm so sorry, boys, that everything went down. It's my fault. I see that Callum is doing a good thing. I would like to go back into the United Empire. And then all of a sudden, I guess for US purposes, AEW purposes, it's like, Ospreay, you know, you have a high flying sort of arsenal here, but we're going to teach you how to be technical, and so we want you to join the Death Riders. You know, I said this before on a podcast that like that's the most stupidest thing, because you wouldn't tell Cody Rhodes to go join the Bloodline. You wouldn't tell Cody Rhodes to be second in command to Roman Reigns. That's fucking stupid. There is way more money to be made with Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns. I don't know why I had a moment of like pausing, but yeah, there's more money to be made on the table than having them join together. You know, it's more money to have Jon Moxley, who has one ideology for AEW, and I can't tell you what the fuck it is, other than like, you gotta get good, son. It's like, you know, if you play Battlefield or Call of Duty or Fortnite and you have some little kid on there and they're like, you gotta get good, bro. That's fucking Jon Moxley's ideology for AEW. You gotta get good, bro. That's it. Anyway, but this is the most unhinged podcast ever. Welcome to the comeback. So you have Jon Moxley's ideology of you got to get good, bruh, in order to be the best in AEW. But Jon Moxley, everyone jobs to Jon Moxley. There we go. That's my mentality there. And then you have Ospreay's philosophy of wrestling, which is make the crowd feel good. I'm going to do all these high flying moves, and I'm going to do Assassin's Creed stuff, and they're going to feel good. So you have two different ideologies that could be money on the table, but AEW doesn't know how to tell stories. AEW doesn't want to make money. AEW just books whatever the fuck like is sticking to the wall. And then when New Japan Pro Wrestling wants to do some type of storyline and they have a little mini vision that could get everybody hyped, it gets stopped and then forget about, and then I don't know, they call up AEW to be like, hey, what are you doing next in this story? It just seems to just float away. And we don't talk about it, and it doesn't get discussed, because everything on AEW is match after match after match, and they might have some backstage segments, but are you remembering the backstage segments? Are you connecting the dots as to like why these two people are having a promo, or are you just worried about the next match that's going to be in like 30 seconds after the promo? We also have to stop letting the online community run AEW, because then this is the kind of convoluted shit that you get from an unhinged podcast that comes back. And again, I'm going to keep it rolling. This is going to be in very, very like unedited format. So yeah, I think that to make things a lot more interesting, even though I want Will Ospreay to dethrone Kenny Omega at Wembley All In for AEW, I do think that there is money on the table for Callum Newman and Will Ospreay, but everybody here is afraid of making money. I think Callum Newman is that guy that ends up costing Will Ospreay everything. Just do it. Take the risk. Do it. It's a lot more better than anything else. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts down below. And yeah, let's discuss this like actual people with some decency and some respect. As a reminder, you can find me almost everywhere across the internet, but Instagram, marieshadows.scp. Sign up to the free wrestling newsletter, marieshadows.substack.com. That is where Tape Study will be living. Like I said, I went over Avery Styles versus Marcus Mathers, that free GCW match that was on YouTube, and I break down that whole entire match from start to finish, and I even give my thoughts on Payne Dues and Eric Cannon, because that dude likes to talk so much shit out of his ass. And then also on the Tape Study side of marieshadows.substack.com is also Yuya versus Ryohei for the finals of the G1 Climax 36 for New Japan Pro Wrestling. I have a lot to say on that because I figured out why you guys love it so much. And eventually AEW fans are going to have to say that I, Marie Shadows, am right about my assessment of that match. Also, if you're listening to this on Spotify, thank you so much for listening to on Spotify and everywhere else that you get your podcasts is on. Ladies and gentlemen, just as a quick reminder for Spotify users, Spotify now supports video formatting, and the Tape Study series will be up there as well. Make sure to share, like, comment, share it to somebody else. Let's get the conversation going, because this is what I think that they should do, because it makes money. I'm all here about, making money in this business, in this industry, where people want to leave money on the table, and I'm going to tell you why that's not a good idea. And if this resonates with you, awesome. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for listening to me. And on to the next one. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to a brand new episode of maybe just a Square Circle podcast and not a hybrid of Tape Study 2, but we'll get there one day. We will get there. But just know that if you want to support me further, marieshadows.substack.com, buymeacoffee.com/Marie Shadows for any mentorships geared towards wrestlers, and my merchandise link will be down below because I do have some cool merch for you guys to buy and support. And I love you guys for listening. And yeah, you have been listening to an episode of the Square Circle podcast, and I'll see you guys on the next one.